Hey, have you ever looked into the eyes of a wild animal, a real wild animal up and close in the real jungle, not in the zoo? I've never done it. I don't think I'll ever have the courage to do it in my life. But here I have a couple sitting in front of me who are doing it and capturing those iconic moments in their camera. We have wildlife photographers Preeti and Prashant Chacko. I'm so glad to meet you here because this is something that fascinates me always.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you very much.
Wildlife photography is something I come across as a very fancy profession because of the movies, maybe where, like in Three Idiots,
Correct.
right, the protagonist goes and tells his father that he wants to become a wildlife photographer, and then he says no. So it's always perceived as a very fancy job by many. But I really want to know more about it. If the questions are very basic, fundamental questions, please forgive me because I have no idea about this whole wildlife photography scenario. I would like to start with your journey. How did you guys start the journey towards the jungle?
I think it started in 2010 when Prashant's job took us to South Africa.
And this three-idiot phenomenon that you mentioned is a widely documented one, right? Where after that movie, the number of people who started actually trying to become wildlife photographers has exploded in India. We were immune to that, right? I don't think that drove us. It was the fact that we moved to South Africa. And when we moved there were many Indian expatriates where we were living, colleagues of mine, friends, who used to go to national parks very often. And we just got caught up in that environment. And certain friends of ours took us under their wing and said, you have to go to national parks and it's amazing and whatever. And they took us there and
We got hooked. Just
It
completely.
just started as a hobby, right? Then
it didn't even start off as photography. It just started off as
Safari going.
safari, just being out in the wild.
Coming from India, living outside India for the first time, no malls, no crowded traffic roads, nothing. Just wild scapes and round the corner an animal. It was something else.
As we started going back, we felt the natural urge in a way to document what we are seeing, right? And it started off at a very basic level. We just take snapshots, basically, right, of what we saw. And then friends of ours who were living in South Africa at the same time had already started their photography journey. They insisted that we go along with them on a long trip to Zambia. There's a national park there called South Luangwa National Park. And there was this wildlife photographer called David Rogers who used to do photography tours there. And the way a photography tour works is you have a wildlife photographer accompanying you and he's coaching you on wildlife photography through the trip, right? So
And he'll take only 4 to maximum 6 guests.
Yeah, correct. Like we were with 3 other guests, 2 of us and 3 other guests. It's very personalized, takes full care of you. And as you're on the trip, he's telling you what he is seeing and how he's seeing it.
okay.
And what he is doing to capture that moment. And then that's the ultimate way to learn because, you know, you're effectively seeing through a professional's eyes, although you're a strict amateur.
And I think it helped that we were in South Africa back then because we had, of course, our phones back then, it was even a BlackBerry.
I was actually going to go with a BlackBerry, for this big safari.
Wow.
And this guy ticked me off saying, you must be mad.
So in South Africa, you have the option of hiring professional cameras and lenses, those big, huge cameras and lenses. I mean,
Nominal prices, they come and deliver it to you on your doorstep. Really convenient.
so our first professional trip like that with a professional camera.
Wow.
So, and once
And
we
beginner's
start,
luck, right? We got some photographs that even today, or more than 10 years since, we still count as among our better photographs. So a lot of beginner's luck meant that we were doubly hooked now because, we enjoyed being out and we felt that we were getting good quality photographs.
Before getting into photography, what are your real professions? Like, what were you doing before?
I am a German instructor. So I worked with the Goethe Institute in Mumbai before we moved to South Africa.
And I work in FMCG marketing and sales, right? So that's my profession and that's what took me to South Africa.
I think when something is there in your destiny and when you're not doing it, somehow the universe will pull you to a place where you're forced to do it.
Correct.
Just like how I was pulled to China to study fashion, right?
Yeah.
The profession was something else, right? So I think the South Africa episode happened for you guys to...
Was for a reason, and we're very thankful for that opportunity.
I'm just trying to figure out if there were any clues before your move to South Africa that you will be dealing with animals or forests. Before that, were there any clues that you could connect
From
the
my
dots
side?
now?
Gosh, no. I had next to no interest in animals, but I think Prashant did.
Yeah, right from my childhood, I had a fascination with animals. And I would think that probably my mother had a role to play in it because she used to talk about this movie called Born Free, right? Which is about a British couple that goes in, has a home in deep Kenya. Then when I was in standard 3, I was in Dubai incidentally at that time for a brief period. I read in the Gulf News that there was this new movie out called The Bear, and it was famous because it had only around 42 to 50 spoken words in the entire movie, right? There's hardly any people, there's no dialogue. That became my favorite movie. I used to watch it 3-4 times a year, right? Because I still, while talking about it now, I feel like going back and watching it because it's been a while. I think I always had this interest, but I never did anything about it.
Just ask him what his favorite animal is.
The bear, clearly. And it's something we haven't seen as
We
yet in the
still haven't
wild.
seen bears, by the
In
way.
the wild, yeah. So that's our bucket list travel
The bear.
that we've got
And
to
what
find.
about yours?
Mine,
Favorite animal?
I think the cheetah.
Cheetah?
Yeah.
You know what's mine? I love monkeys. When I saw your booth in World Art Dubai, you know what caught my eye was the picture of that monkey in black and white,
Yeah.
looking at me so innocently, so charming. That is what drew me towards you guys, and we had the first conversation.
It's amazing that you said that because that photo is the first inkling that we got that our work was actually decent. Till then, we were just taking photographs, and family always likes whatever you do, right? So you can't really take it as feedback. But that particular photo, Preeti had just sent it for an online contest that a guy called David Yarrow, who's probably the most famous wildlife photographer in the world, was running. He was running an Instagram giveaway. And he said, just send me a photo and I'll give you a prize. And he chose this as the winner, right? And till then we were just, just taking photographs for fun. When Yarrow likes a photo and chooses it among many and praises it, I think that's the first time we got an inkling that, okay, our work is actually decent. So that monkey photo is special for
It's
us
very
in our
special.
journey.
Yeah.
Oh, see? It called me. And how do you plan your jungle trips, like now that you are into wildlife photography? You are going without somebody's guidance, right? You do trips on your own, or you still take
We do.
someone?
No, we do trips on our own now. I think we've gone beyond the stage of requiring someone to handhold us.
So there are two kinds of guides, right? So a wildlife guide, we always need and recommend, right? A photography guide is the one we've kind of weaned away from, right? Because we've got to a certain level in the photography. But a wildlife guide is a must.
A naturalist.
A naturalist or a wildlife guide, because most national parks don't allow civilians to drive in there. Quite often, we've noticed that people who travel to the wild underestimate the role of the guide, right? And they tend to go for the cheapest guide available or the first guide available. I think choosing the guide is probably the most important thing you should do in planning a wildlife trip, because a good guide knows animal behavior, knows the rhythm of the forest, right? And will help you get the shot.
They live there. They know that place better than you'll ever know it.
And they know which animal comes to which spot, around what time, what to expect.
Yeah, less of that, because in truly large wild places, you can't predict that, right? But once you're at a sighting, they can, with a reasonable probability, tell you what's going to happen next. Obviously, there's a chance of being wrong, correct? Because it's the wild. But because of their experience of having, spent so much time with wild animals, and because many of them are very qualified guides as well, they know the signs to read. They know the body language, right? Especially,
And they can predict.
They can predict. Like elephants are easily the most dangerous animal to be around, easily, right? But with a good guide, you can get close to large herds of elephant because they are reading the body language. They're
You
reading
might
the body language.
panic thinking you're seeing signs of aggression, whereas
They're saying it's not aggression.
Okay.
Right. So we have many instances of, being literally surrounded by a massive herd of elephants. And these are mega tuskers, right? And all of that. And our guide is sitting and just chilling and, putting his head up and not even bothered because he's reading the signs. Now, a good guide can do that for you. A bad guide will probably just run away.
Okay.
So these guides we can never do without. So one of the first things that we do is always establish a sort of relationship and find these guides. So these guides we definitely need. It's the photography guides that now
we weaned away from. We have a couple of mentors that we reach out to often.
Yeah.
but we're not hooked onto them. We can travel without them.
And how long are your jungle trips? Like, do you stay inside the forest? And how
If we
long?
get the chance, we would always live within rather than outside.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You guys
No
not-
question. No question.
100%.
You're not scared of the jungle?
So there is a thrill, of course, when you wake up at 4:30, you're scrambling in the dark trying to get ready because we have to get there before the sun rises. And then you're getting ready and suddenly you hear that lion roar. And that thrill that, there's this little shiver that goes up and down your spine. That's something you can never experience when you live outside. But that's the thrill.
Okay.
That's the excitement of living, of actually experiencing it.
Fundamentally, these are designed for tourism. Right. And something designed for tourism will be designed with safety in mind, quite naturally, right? So in most parts of the world, even if you're staying in the forest, you're staying in a fenced camp. But we tend to prefer the unfenced camps because there's a sense of, wild expanse. When you look out, you see nothing. You see no walls, no fences, and you just see, miles of wilderness. Even those, if you follow certain basic ground rules, it is extremely safe.
Like ground rules?
Ground rules like if it's nightfall, only walk with a guard accompanying you, right? A local who knows the area, and he'll have a torch and whatever. He won't even carry a gun, right? It's not that wild and that unsafe, but it's somebody who knows the rhythm of the place, right? And if you're with them, you are safe. And we travel with our infant daughter, right? So it's the marker of how safe we feel it is.
You take her with you to the forest?
Everywhere. She's been on safari since she's
A year and
less-
a half, yeah.
less than
Less than 2.
less than 2.
She's probably done more safari days than most adults on the planet already. And she's only 4.5 now.
So the question about whether you fear the forest, no. We don't fear it, we respect it. And if you respect something, you follow those guidelines and you're fine. Seriously, you're fine.
Does it humble you to be in a vast, wild place?
It is. It's just completely humbling, and you just feel so calm and relaxed. And you feel like you don't realize, sometimes you don't realize the tensions that you carry into the wild when you go back. That first drive, the excitement is of course there of being back, but then you realize as you're going to a sighting, I just feel like degrees of tension are just going down. And then it's just enjoying the breeze in your hair, on your face, and the laughter and it's of course when we go back to see the guides, it's hi, how are you, catching up with what has been happening, what are the sightings that are around. It's just the general chit chat. It's like you're back home, you're back where you belong.
Yeah, it can
That's the feeling for us.
It can be a deeply meditative experience. It can be quite spiritual, right? Because you're spending all your time in wonder of nature's beauty, right? And that's probably the heart of spirituality anyway, right? This wonder of creation, correct?
Yeah.
And you're surrounded by creation in its rawest form.
Amazing. And
Right.
what are the things that you pack? Like, there should be a lot of things that you carry, right?
Oh, mostly camera gear.
This is the funny thing. So internally, when we were living in Kenya, the internal flights allow 12 kgs, I think, per person.
15
kgs a person. We would on average carry 2 to 3 kilos of
Clothes combined.
Clothes and toiletries, and 13 kilos of camera gear. That's our typical packing list.
Tell me if there were any experiences of surprises or shocks that you have gone through inside the forest. Because the minute you tell everyone that you are going to the forest, right, everyone expects something there.
Yeah.
I think that is the problem in a way. You expect these incidents. Again, it comes down to the guide. You go with the right guide, you really minimize probability of such events occurring. Go with a person you trust who knows what to do and when to do and how to avoid certain situations. You really can't go too wrong. I mean, of course, this is the wild. Things can happen, but incidents, do you remember any?
No, I think the key aha moment for us, and we realized it a little way in, was that because for the animal, you are neither predator nor prey, right? They ignore you. You're just part of the scenery for the animal.
Okay.
So we've had occasions where a male lion is sleeping below our vehicle for hours. a leopard is walking behind, an elephant is touching it, right? We've been in Zambia where it's pitch dark, we can't see anything, and there are two male lions standing 12 inches from the car. I can put my hand out and touch its mane if I want to, which I shouldn't, never should do, and I didn't. But that's how close it is. But the simple reality is you are neither prey nor predator. Therefore, they ignore you. You are like a rock or a tree or any other element in nature for them. Therefore, they live their own lives completely oblivious of the fact that you are in their midst.
Okay.
And that's what makes being in the wild totally mind. It's the first thing that everyone doesn't realize. They say, but I'm there. Why is it not bothered? Why is it not attacking me? Why is it, not stressed out? They're not stressed out because you're neither predator nor prey. And therefore, you're like a rock or a tree.
I think that is possibly the reason for some why incidents can happen. You go with that fear that they're just waiting to attack you, which obviously is not the case. And then you realize they're right there and not bothered. You think, therefore, they are almost
they're
tame.
Because they ignore you, you think they are tame because it seems so calm. Then people do silly things. Then you can have an incident.
Like I saw the Instagram post where someone
somebody
actually
just petted a male lion in Masai Mara recently, right? It's just total stupidity, right?
Now, that is where incidents can happen. That is the reason for incidents more than... Or if some guides just get a little too close because sometimes they get a little over enthusiastic.
Or they don't read. Or the inexperienced guides. Sometimes people to make a quick buck will offer to guide you, right? But they don't know what they're doing. And especially with elephants, if you can't read body language, you can really be under risk because elephants are dangerous.
Okay.
And they have the power to knock down a vehicle easily.
Okay.
So in South Africa, you've got the term Big Five. And Big Five were... originally it's a hunting term, the 5 most dangerous animals to hunt. If you actually look at the classification, elephants are very dangerous. Lions are dangerous. So that's the difference.
What are those 5? The big 5?
The lion, the leopard, elephant, rhino, and buffalo.
Buffalo?
The African buffalo, not the Indian buffalo.
Okay. In fact, if you tell them in Africa that we domesticate buffaloes in India, they think you're mad. Right? And then you tell them we domesticate elephants also. That's it. They give up. They say, you guys are from a different planet.
In terms of taking pictures of the animals, you can't set up a scene. You can't get the subject ready. It is not still. You don't know what it is going to do next. How do you get these beautiful shots?
That's the thrill of it, right? Because our hit rate is roughly 2 in 1,000. Right? For every 1,000 photographs we take, we'll be truly happy with 2 on large sample average. And that exactly is the thrill. The fact that more often than not, you won't like the output, right? Because there's so many factors that can go wrong. When you do get something good, that high is phenomenal. In a proper wildlife moment, there are 2 or 3 highs. There's one high of just being there. The second high of seeing something unique, right? Because something unique could just unfold in front of you, right? The third high is being able to capture that something unique in a beautiful way. And when all 3 come together, you're addicted. You have to go back.
Wow. Something like this shot. I don't know if we'll ever get a chance to capture something like this again.
No, and both of us were in the car at the same time. She got it, I didn't get it. Right? So it adds another element of, there's literally one in a million chance, 1 in 1,000 chance for us of getting something we like.
Okay.
Right?
So
and
when we
adds
do
the thrill.
get it, gosh, that high keeps us going back. Because we are never going to see this again, but we'll see something else.
No, and the process, so like if you compare it to, let's say, still life photography, in still life photography, you control every element, right? You control everything. You control where you are, you control where the subject is, you control the lighting, you control all of that, right? So there you aim for perfection, right? You work on the narrowest of margins and you aim for the perfect thing.
And you can create beautiful images.
And it's a different genre, it's a different mindset, but you're aiming for perfection, right? Micrometer perfection. But in wildlife or even street photography, right, and maybe to an extent even certain landscape photography, you don't control the elements at all, right? You have to react to the elements. And therefore the mindset is risk minimization. Minimize the risk of losing the shot, right? Whereas in the studio, it's maximize the chance of getting perfection.
Okay.
Right. So risk minimization is the mindset. So You choose, let's say, your aperture in a way that even if the animal moves a little, it's in a certain depth of field that it'll be reasonably sharp. You choose your shutter speed in a way that even if it suddenly starts running really fast, I won't blur the photo. You minimize risk. You choose a position where even if the animal were to move 100 meters, you're not way off to get a shot.
And you choose your background so that you can...
Correct. You choose the light, you see where the sun is going, right? And say, okay, the sun's now going to go to this side, therefore maybe we should wait in this area so that when it does get up, you'll have a good thing. So you're minimizing risk of losing a shot.
By studying all these different elements.
And experience, right? You lose 1,000 shots and the 1,001st shot you may get if you learn, keep going that way.
And then having studied all these elements, you can still wait and do everything right. And then
still miss the shot.
And still miss the shot.
Which is okay.
Waiting was one thing I was about to ask. How long have you waited to get a good shot? Because you know why I'm asking this question is people talk about this quite often when they speak about wildlife photography. I had to wait for these many days to get this one single shot and, you know, all those things. What was the longest wait that you had?
You were there. I wasn't there on that trip.
In that trip, yeah, that trip was quite cool. There was this. We got word of a leopard that was by a tree with a kill, and I mean leopard tree kill. You cannot say no to such an opportunity. So we go there, and we realized the leopard had come down and was a little far off, and he wasn't going to come back to the tree anytime soon. Now you can say, okay, that's done, you can move on, but we gave up the opportunity of going to see the lions or going to see any other subject for this very simple reason that tree was so picturesque, the background was so clear that scene, if the leopard climbed, would have made the shot. And so we came back that day. That whole day went in just trying to get that one shot. We came back we went back to the camp because our daughter was there, and we do spend time with her in the camp when between drives. But we came back just for that shot, and I think we waited 3-4 hours the second time round when we came back for it. And that particular leopard really made us work for it. It walked maybe 150 to 200 meters in 4 hours.
Oh.
And then the lights going, because we need to get back to our camp by a certain time, and we were a little away, so we have to factor in that drive time as well. We are now really racing. The clock's ticking, the time's going, and that leopard is now literally at the foot of the tree, but still not climbing. And you can feel the tension, and then suddenly no one wants to be the one to say, okay, I think it's time to go back, because you still want that. It's right there. You can feel it. And just when we were giving up hope of that leopard ever climbing, 2 seconds, done.
So 4 hours of wait for 2 seconds. Huh? 2 seconds is what literally the moment.
And we got the shot. We didn't even have time to wait to see where he was going. No, we had to run. We had to rush back. But that vehicle was full of laughter and excitement. And everyone was making jokes about the leopard, about how long it takes, and finding equivalence. But that thrill, that excitement, that camaraderie from just that 2 seconds. It was just 2 seconds. And then, of course, everyone's just checking to see that we got that shot.
How was the shot? Yeah.
It was a great shot. It was worth it. It was worth it. In the end, that's the thing that keeps us going back. The wait, the discomfort, the whatever might happen, everything is worth it in the end when you get that one photograph.
And if I flip it, I would think that wildlife photography wouldn't be 1/10 as interesting if you didn't have to wait, right? Because if not waiting is effectively going to a zoo.
True.
It's there. It's waiting for you, right? The part of the thrill is in the fact that you got to
Definitely.
work for it. You got to work for it. You got to make some bets. You got to prepare, etc., etc. And the fact that after all that it may not happen is probably the reason why when it does happen, it's far more delightful and you will go back. If it happened easily, I think, we'd probably got tired of this a long time back.
Yeah.
And as you mentioned, like when you're taking a shot, there are several factors that surrounds you which might affect the result that you get. And how much of post-production is involved once you get a shot? How much do you work on it afterwards?
They're both yin and yang. You need to do both, right? It's not like you can do so much work in the field that you do no post production, and it's not that you can do nothing in the field and solve everything through post production. You need both. And kind of my analogy is a bit like, say, you're making your favorite dish. Selecting the right ingredients and the right recipe is one part of the work, and for me, that's the field work, right? Because what you capture is what is a raw image, literally, right? But cooking a raw image is post-processing. And post-processing is about, at least from our perspective, it's about trying to convey from that raw image what we felt at that moment. And, therefore, looking at the contrast, looking at the textures, looking at,
Where's the
where's the focus?
Where
What's
do
the
you
subject?
want
What's the story? Trying to build that out through processing is our approach.
And it can take days because, as in when I say days, you do it and then you leave it and you forget about it, you move on, you do other things, and then you come back to it because sometimes you're too close to an image. When you're sitting and editing an image, you're so close and you're so involved. And I can tell you the backstory of this image. You're too involved with that you need to sometimes cut yourself off from that whole process, move away and come back and sometimes look at it like of someone who doesn't know anything about that particular moment, sees the image. What do you want that person to see? And then the question is, did you see that? So there you then tweak just a little bit more and then give it that, close that and say, okay, I'm happy with this image.
Also, it's not just about that picture. It's about the emotion that it kind of triggers.
For us, there are different kinds of photography, but for us, it's that.
Yeah.
We feel privileged to have experienced something, right? And now we want to bring that to the world. Now we can bring that to the world in two ways. We can just take a snapshot and say we saw this, which is the simplest way of bringing it to the world. Or we can try and show it in a way to say, this is what we felt. This is what the feeling of that moment was. And that's what we try and do. That's a never-ending journey, right? We'll master it someday, perhaps. But that's the attempt.
It's not just about what you guys felt. The one who is looking at the image, we have no background.
Correct.
But I can make up my own story with the emotion that animal is trying to convey to me.
Correct.
As I said, there was a charming young little monkey which was calling me.
Correct.
And that's one of the reasons why we primarily do black and white.
I just wanted to know. Yeah.
Right, that's one of the reasons, because black and white is unnatural. Right? Now, when your mind sees something unnatural, the process of something unnatural, it's forced to take a double take. The mind has to add the colors, which is a parallel for the mind is to add your own story to it, your own emotion to it. If you do your black and white processing really well, it hooks you in. We genuinely believe that in most cases, color is a distraction because color hits you in the face, right? And you have almost a surface appreciation of what's happening, and quite often you move on, right? Whereas well done black and white, and some of the people we truly admire do it brilliantly. Well done black and white, because it's unnatural, forces you to look at it again and again. And as you are forced to use your brain on it, you're adding your own stories and you're adding more emotion. And therefore, we feel that the emotional depth of a black and white photo is far greater than the same one in color. Yeah. And you start appreciating texture and form, just the essence of what you're seeing, rather than just the superficial view of what you're seeing.
Because generally the idea is animals are all about colors, forest is all about green,
Correct.
right? But really black and white adds some drama to anything.
Yeah.
I think another aspect there is these animals have been there for eons. They've been there for a long time, and they were there before,
Animals
were there even before human beings. So black and white also has a timeless quality to it. And that's what we're also trying to give to these images that we take, that these animals that we see are not just here and gone. They've been there for a while, and they will live for a longer through these images.
I want to know, from being a sustainable fashion designer and being into the field of sustainability, how are the forests in the world treated by tourists?
It's a tricky one, right? Tourism and conservation, or tourism and sustainability, is a tricky one, because without the tourist revenue, the conservation becomes unviable. And yet, if you tilt the balance towards too much revenue, there is no sustainability, right? So it's a tricky balance that needs to be found. Mm-hmm. If you look at it two ways, if you go to the better national parks in general, right, they tend to be slightly more towards the sustainability, because they fully understand the implications of unfettered tourism, right? Or people breaking rules, etc., etc. But again, you will find, there are all kinds of people, and many of them just don't know that it's a wild place. They just don't appreciate the fact, or just have not been exposed to the fact that throwing plastic can damage the environment or things like that. So you'll find a mix and match. I don't think the answer is about curbing tourism, because that revenue is essential for the forest to sustain. The answer is just in probably getting a lot more neighboring communities actively involved in the process, because if tourism gives them sustainable employment, you will find them finding jobs as guides, etc., in those forests, and they can help educate all the tourists that they guide on what is the right thing to do and the wrong thing to do, and it's a bit of a virtuous cycle that you can create, right?
That'll be great. What are the forests that you have explored so far, and what is your dream forest that you are yet to do?
Well, primarily we started with Africa, so we've done a few. I wouldn't say all. Gosh, no, not all, but we've done a few in South Africa. We've gone to Zambia, South Luangwa, Namibia, and then of course Kenya. We've done a few, and we've still not finished the parks that we want to see in Kenya. And then we did a few in India also, right?
Yeah. So, but yeah, primarily Africa. Bucket list, there's many more fantastic parks in Africa that we haven't been to. The parks that we have been to, we want to go back.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right?
And then there are places we have never been to. Now if you want to see bears, or if you want to see penguins, or if you want to see a different kind of monkeys, or the orangutan.
Eagles,
Eagle.
gorillas.
The list is endless.
Oh,
So
wow.
the world
list
is still waiting.
Let's talk about the thing that we discussed right at the beginning. If somebody wants to take up wildlife photography as a full-time career, can they do it? What would you suggest?
Possible, it definitely is,
Yes.
because quite a few people are doing it. I think there's fundamentally two streams, or 2.5, 3 streams in it. The first one is to be a full-time wildlife photographer, where your revenue stream is to sell photographs. Now, that puts you in the art world, right? And that world is incredibly competitive, right? Because you're competing with every form of art, right? Because everyone has 1 or 2 spaces on a wall, right? And that's competing with every form of art known to man, right? So only the very, very, very exceptionally talented photography artists can probably make a living only selling photographs. And there are people who do it, but they are exceptionally good. What we find that a majority end up doing, effectively becoming photography tutors or photography travel guides, quite common. Because if you look at the genre, cost lies in the travel and the equipment, right? Both of which are very pricey. If you're a tour guide, a photography guide for 10 people, you're subsidizing your travel, which means you can keep going back a lot more often,
And
which means you can generate more
maximize your
photos,
chances of getting more photos.
etc., right? So that's probably the model that most people end up following, right? So therefore, most wildlife photographers are actually teachers.
And then you'll find YouTube tutorials that they might do, or master classes.
Correct.
And workshops.
And if somebody wants to indulge, like me, I had no idea before having this conversation. I didn't know anything about wildlife photography. What are the things that someone can follow or read about, look up? What are the things that one can do to start this journey?
YouTube. Now, honestly, everything is there. You don't need to go to a photography school or a photography institute. It's nice. But the way we learned it is, I think initially you start off with figuring out what you like, what genre you like, and then you start searching online on YouTube, and you will find enough and more masterclasses and tutorials by different well-known photographers in that genre. They're very, very good.
And these are genuine masterclasses, right? It read like exceptional professionals putting up their work and telling you how they did it, and what the process was and what they were thinking of and things like that. So there's a lot of self-teaching resources that are available now in plenty, right?
And then, of course, once you decide, there's social media, you can follow them so that you get that daily dose of inspiration.
And if you're serious about improving your craft, then we definitely recommend finding a professional mentor, right, who will take you on a workshop or do workshops, right? Because that learning curve is immense. A lot of people make the mistake of thinking that understanding photography is about understanding the camera settings. That's just the basic, right? And many people get stuck in that and are too obsessed about what's the aperture and what's the shutter speed. That's not the game. The game is understanding what to see, how to see, right? When you're in a great photographer, the difference between a great photographer and an average one is what they see, right? How do they frame a set of elements into something beautiful? Whereas the others may frame it very differently and not create art. And that learning how to see, there's no better way than to travel with people who are experts at seeing. Because you start calibrating your mind to how they're approaching that subject and what are they looking at and things like that, right?
I think it also helps just knowing whether they're the right kind of photography guides to go to. There are, unfortunately, just like you've got the naturalist who's there for the quick buck just to get you that shot, there are also photography guides who are not too keen on sharing and teaching.
Yeah, it's natural, right? Some people feel that sharing means it's weakening themselves, right? And therefore you may go along with them and not learn a thing. We've thankfully never had that experience that we've heard from friends. But if you go with somebody who's willing to teach, and thankfully everyone you travel with has been very, very willing to teach all their secrets, right? It's phenomenal.
Awesome. And where can people follow you guys? Can you please let us know your handles and Instagram?
Yeah, we're
social
on
media?
Instagram. Our handle is Composing the Wild.
And how is it to be sharing the same passion, being a couple and now having a daughter, taking her along? Like, how do you manage the family dynamics and then the photography trips and then sending the child to school? There are a lot of things going on, right? Like, how do you guys manage it?
Well, the first is I don't think there's any argument as to where to go on holiday on the next holiday.
Correct. That's easy. That is settled. Now it's only about the how and when.
So, yeah. And then I guess what we often find is when we go out for dinner, we reminisce a lot and we'd say, hey, you remember what happened here and what happened there. The thing that we like the most is the high, of course, the thrill of being in for wildlife photography. But doing it together means that there is that shared thrill. A shared thrill is better than a...
Because we can discuss it because both of us saw it together. We experienced it together. Say if I saw something and she didn't see it, or vice versa, however well I describe it, she won't fully understand.
Like we went whale watching and he saw the whale breach and I didn't.
Yeah, correct.
I still didn't.
So I've left that trip with a phenomenal experience and an image in my mind, and she just missed it completely. Right. So
because I was looking the wrong way.
Photographing together means we minimize risk. Both of us saw this scene. She got the photo. I have nothing.
You got another version which
of a different scene, not this scene. Right. Taken roughly the same time, but I don't have this photo.
But even then, the picture that she has taken may tell a different story.
Correct.
And yours may tell a different story.
It will because...
there are so many variables, right? Like I could be on a zoom lens and she could be in a wide angle, which means she will do a beautiful landscape and I may do a portrait, right? Which are two totally different photos, right? Or I could have been distracted and seen some other thing and tried to get that and she saw something else. Quite often there's a lot of things happening around you. What catches my eye could be different from what catches her eye. I may be in the front of the vehicle and she may be in the back, which means their angles could be different. Which means, say, my background is clean and her background is messy. So in the same photograph, I get a better one than her, So there are many things at play.
We come back with two memories of the same trip, of every incident.
Correct.
How sweet.
Yeah, and a constant reminder of what you could have got.
Yeah.
Very nice. Thank you so much for being here. I learned a lot. Keep going into jungles and send us more pictures.
Will do.
It's entirely our pleasure. Thank you.